Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first ever live stream from Mostly Arsenal. Feels really, really weird to be doing this. Normally I do pre-recorded. I think I've done about 40 videos so far. But here we are. We're live, and I'm in the presence of greatness. You probably will recognise these two beautiful faces on the screen next to mine. We've got Stephen and G from Cannon Chatter. Lads, everyone knows you, but if you want to introduce yourselves, start with you, Stephen.
I'm Stephen from Cannon Chatter.
How are you, mate? How's your day been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Feeling a bit better today. I was feeling a bit ropey towards the end of the week there. I thought I'd come down with the dreaded COVID, but I was okay. I just was a bit rough feeling, so got a bit of sleep and stuff. At this point I was supposed to be on Ryan, Mr. Arsenal's channel on Friday night. I've been looking forward to being on doing this quiz all week. And I missed out because I was feeling like rubbish. So it is what it is, but I'm feeling much better now. So hopefully on the mend and back to normal.
Good. Fingers crossed, my friend. Thanks for that. And over to you, G. How's your day been, mate?
Yes, not too bad, not too bad. It's been a busy weekend because I've been working, and obviously came home and wanted to, spend my late afternoon watching Arsenal, win in the cup, but didn't quite go to plan. But dinner was all right, so that's a plus. But yeah, no, I'm good. I'm a little bit tired, but you know what? I'm absolutely privileged to be on your first live stream. So yeah, man, all good, man, all good.
Really appreciate it. I know we've all got busy lives, and obviously you guys have tons to do with like family life, full-time jobs, and your own channel as well. So I do appreciate it. So thanks very much.
No problem at all, man.
Now I know you guys you're not really into doing the instant match reactions, and in my head when I'd set tonight, I didn't think today would go as badly as it did. So it's entirely up to you two. If you want to have a good rant, then this is a safe place you can do so. If you want to abstain, that's fine as well. We've got plenty of other stuff to talk about. So, G, anything you want to go into about today's game?
You know what? The funny thing is, I'm actually feeling somewhat calm. And that's Steve again, his popcorn out, yeah. You know what? It's a weird one. It's like I don't really get it. I don't really get why I feel as calm as I do. But I just feel as though, first of all, we were rubbish. We were absolutely rubbish. And I think there's something I've said in previous streams on Cannon Chatter where I've said you can usually tell from the minute Arsenal kick a ball how the performance is going to be.
Yeah.
It's like we either start well and we play well, or we start badly and we don't get any better. And from the first kind of 5-10 minutes, it just had banana skin written all over it in terms of just the way we were playing. I wasn't too worried when I saw the lineup because I looked at the opposition. I thought, okay, they're mid-table in the championship. Yeah, we have a lot of players missing due to illness, injuries, AFCON, etc. But at the end of the day, Arteta fielded a team, in my opinion, that was good enough to win the game. Now, for whatever reason, the performance just didn't match, what he picked on paper. And that was both in the first half and the second half. There wasn't even really much of a lift, even after the half time, which was quite worrying, which is quite a surprise because you'd expect them to come out kind of all gun blazing, given the fact that, this is the FA Cup. We've got such a proud history. It's an opportunity to win a trophy. But I just think for me, what that performance just epitomizes is the fact that there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of this rebuild and in terms of this process. And this is something that, me and Stephen have banged on about from the beginning when we started Cannon Chatter, when we did our squad review. The vast majority of those players in that team today were part of that squad review. And the vast majority of those players on that pitch today should not be playing for Arsenal. So I'm pissed off. I'm annoyed that we're out because it's like, today we are, we're banter club today because all the other rivals can, they can chip in with their 2 pennies worth, saying we got beat by Forest, we're out the cup, etc., etc. At the same time, I'm very kind of realistic just in terms of who we're playing and where we are in terms of this kind of rebuild. Had we lost to Forest with a stronger side and having maybe some of our, better resources available to us, I'd be definitely a lot more annoyed. But I'm kind of just, I don't know. I'm strangely kind of calm about it. I just want this to be, in a way, to kind of sum it up. If we could have lost any game in the next week, I would have picked this game to lose. Because I feel as though the game against Liverpool, the 2 legs, it's a real big one, given obviously the opposition, the fact that we've not won the Carabao Cup for however many years. And it's a real opportunity to win a trophy. And we can't lose the North London derby in terms of the top 4 race. And obviously, to have the rivals let them have that over us. So yeah, I'm annoyed. I am annoyed, but at the same time, for me, I'm looking at the team and I'm just thinking, well, this is what we've been saying all along. Our second string is just not good enough.
Yeah, it's a country miles away. Yeah, totally agree. I feel weirdly calm now about it. I got to the point where it was almost like I don't even want to watch this anymore because you see that we weren't gonna create anything at all.
Nothing.
How about you, Stephen? Do you feel like sharing, or do you want to pass on this one?
No, I think G summed up a lot of it. We were poor, and it's as he says. We've been banging on for a long time about squad depth. We talked a lot in the summer about. It was funny because we kind of thought the 6 signings we made in the summer were all being brought in as squad depth rather than as starters. And, the likes of Ben White, Tomiyasu, Ramsdale, they're automatic starters now. Tavares, I think, was very poor today. Very poor. And I can understand why he was after half an hour. And I understand why he was upset, and you want them to be upset. You don't want a player to come off after half an hour being happy about it.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with the fact he was upset about it, but he just looked poor, and he kind of looked like he proved why Kieran Tierney's number 1 choice.
Yeah.
He absolutely proved that. I thought Sambi was not great, but I don't think it helped that he had Patino next to him. And much as we all, want Charlie Patino to be the next big thing, he's not maybe, but he is still a long way off being a first team starter for Arsenal. I think, it was great seeing him get a goal against Sunderland, but at the minute that's kind of his level. I don't think he's anywhere near ready for first team football. I mean, the thing is, he's 18 now, and you go back and you look at the likes of Jack Wilshere, Fabregas, bursting onto the scene with 16, and yet Patino's being touted as bigger and better than them. At the minute, he does it in the under 23s and stuff, but I'm not seeing it. I did not see anything in that match tonight that sort of made me think, he's going to be the next big star of the future. Eddie, I don't get why we played Eddie and Nketiah. Well, I understand why we played Eddie and Nketiah in the sense that, we can't play Lacazette in every single game, and with no Aubameyang, and it looks like Balogun off to Middlesbrough this week, we kind of had to play him, but at the same time, we've now cup tied him. So if he goes to another club, he can't play in the cup. And again, he's another one that he found his level against Sunderland. A hat-trick against Sunderland is his level. He is not good enough, and we've said this for a long time. He is not good enough to be a first-team starter at Arsenal. I'm sorry, but I will never, to the day I die, buy this thing that he just wants to play football, and it's not about the money. He held Arsenal, he held Crystal Palace to ransom last summer over money when he could have gone and had his first-team football at Palace.
Yep.
So it's... Do you know the only sort of creditable thing that kind of came from tonight, and it's a player who we know was going, was the way Kalashnik came on. He just looked like someone who's fired up and wanted to be involved in the game. And I don't think he touched the ball, or if he did, it was like 1 or 2 touches in the last 3 minutes. But he actually looked, and you've got to hand it to him. He's kind of been a model professional.
Yeah.
But other than that, there really was nothing positive about that game tonight. It was just poor from start to finish.
A really good point you make about Nketiah being cup tied, actually, because that says to me that they are resigned to the fact that we're not going to try to sell him in January, and he's going. And like you said, Sunderland Championship that's his level. I saw a really good comment on Twitter tonight. I think it was Jay Gomez said he's got a head the shape of a 50 pence. And when you look at the header that he missed, so you can't really disagree with that, can you?
Not at all.
It was it his Leeds as well? He missed one.
Yes, he did.
It cost us the game. Well, that didn't cost us the game, but he could have won us the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good point.
It's funny.
In a minute.
Yeah.
Sorry, G, go on.
No, sorry. I was saying to Keith, I don't know if you saw I didn't actually see the post-match interview, but I saw some tweets from some of the accredited accounts that tweet out all the Arsenal stuff. And Arteta was asked if there'll be any signings. Do Arsenal need signings? And his response was classic. His response was, "Today we've just lost away in the FA Cup to Nottingham Forest." I thought that was absolutely brilliant in terms of a response. So yeah, a resounding yes, I think, from Arteta in terms of incomings.
Yeah, that tells you all you need to know. Nothing else needed to be said after that, really. What I'll do, because I'm going to try to remember to doing this. Right, everyone, I'm really, really new at this. So if I miss any comments or I forget to do this for a while, I'm not being rude or I'm not being an arsehole. It's just that I'm new and I've forgotten. So let's see if I can get this to work. There we go. There's my mate Judge. All right, Tony. Thank you, mate, for dropping in. Jake. Big up Keith and the Cannon Chatter. This topical storm is going to be a madness. Yeah, you're not wrong there. It probably will be a madness. Tony, I didn't come down with COVID. I came down with Arsenalitis.
Yeah, tell me about it.
We can all say the same there. Gamer DJ, good evening. Thank you very much for dropping in and joining us again. Tom, evening, guys. Did you do some last minute changes to your script tonight, Keith? No script, Tom. But the first talking point has changed, but we'll go into that a bit more in a minute. Tony, dreadful passing, non-existent midfield, low quality depth in squad. Yeah, that's exactly what we've just been saying. No passion. Where can we top off this turd bucket? I really can't excuse the performance, but we move. Yep. Exactly the same. Could not possibly agree more. This is the game I was driving. So interested in your sire's views. It probably, if we'd have done this a lot earlier, I think it might have been a bit more brutal.
Yeah.
But
I'll just say this. Sorry, just jump in.
No,
Cal, I'll say this to Cal, obviously, who missed the match. He's driving. Don't bother watching the highlights because there weren't any.
No.
I don't think we had a single shot on target in 90 minutes.
No, we didn't at all.
Yeah, it was absolutely rubbish.
And they're ninth, I believe, in the championship. I know they've improved since the manager came in.
Yeah.
But
I think for me, our best performer was probably Leno. And that says a lot in terms of he made a save down to his left hand side from a quick counter attack that they had. That was decent save, and then I think he pulled off a good save from a free kick. And I think other than Leno, the only other player that looked like he had any kind of something about him was Martinelli. But he was up against a somewhat inspired right back. In that decent expense. Yeah, like Martinelli tried, and that's what you get with Martinelli, regardless of whether the team plays well or not. He always runs his socks off. But yeah, that guy Spence, I've never heard of the kid before, but he had some game.
Apparently, I think he's on loan. I can't remember where it was. Maybe
from Middlesbrough. I heard. I think it was.
But he got pace to burn, and I think he won that battle. Really.
Yeah.
Is Jake need to use tonight's poor performance as motivation for the next 3 games? All very winnable, and we're capable of winning too. And they are now massive games. I would have probably classed. We all class the FA Cup above the Carabao or the League Cup, as it's known under many different guises. But for now, the 2-legger against Liverpool is massive and every bit as big as the North London derby.
Yeah, it's huge.
Tony, gee, bro, what you sipping on?
Sipping on some white wine tonight. That's what I'm sipping on. Huh?
Bit of culture, bringing the levels up, as me saying.
Yeah, definitely.
Cal, I thought this was a two-legged game. When I heard it wasn't, I was shocked to start Patino. Well, I don't know how I feel. I mean, it's good to see the lads getting the chances, but I had a bit of a conversation about this on Jake's channel, We Are the Arsenal, the other night, and Patino's one of those. We all want him to do well, and like his talent is, there's no denying that, but he's just not ready. He actually at the start of the game, first probably 15-20 minutes, he was one that was putting the tackles in, and he's still very tiny. He's got a lot of growing to do still by the looks of him, and I'm always wondering whether they didn't scout Forest properly, because you look at the pace that they had on the break. It wasn't just Spence. It was it Benson, the other one?
Benson,
yeah, he was quick as hell. You had Davis up front, who was basically bullying White and Holding. And you think this probably wasn't the game for players like Charlie to come in.
I don't think it helped though that 34 had COVID.
I'd not had a chance to look into it. I was wondering if that was the case.
Yeah, so
Smith Rowe, isn't it?
He's got a second bout of COVID. No, I think Smith Rowe's just a muscle strain.
Yeah.
Okay. But for me, I mean, you're absolutely right in what you're saying about in terms of the midfield. For me, I would put Murray next to Holding and played Ben White in centre midfield alongside Lukonga.
Yeah, it needed a bit more experience in there.
You know what though? It does make you, when you actually look at it, it does make you somewhat question, the loan of Ainsley out to Roma though. Because when you look at it now, I'm not saying that I think Ainsley should be in our long-term plans or anything like that, because I do think he's a better right back than he is a midfielder. However, he can do a job in midfield, and at the end of the day, could you not have just like given the situation with regards how light we are in midfield? I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure if loaning him out to Roma makes a lot of sense in terms of where we are as a squad in that midfield area.
I think the timing of it makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's not an option to buy. If we were selling him for 15-20 million to get somebody else in, okay, but I can't see any reason behind it unless they've already got something lined up. But we're 9 days into the month now.
Yeah, we're going into the Liverpool game when you think about it, like our midfield options are just scarce to say the least.
Yeah,
we could have a midfield of Sambi and a Patino against Liverpool.
Did you see that Maitland-Niles made his debut for Roma tonight?
Yeah, he did.
Do you see where he played?
Right back.
Yeah.
He can't run from it. He can't run from his destiny.
No.
He could have been playing right back for us instead of Cedric.
This is what I'm saying, though. It's just madness. Oh, God. He just needs to accept the inevitable, man. You're right back, bro.
Yeah. Everyone sees you as a right back. Everyone knows that you want to be central midfield.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, God.
Jake, shows Arsenal lack quality and depth, and the next two windows are vital. Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Obviously, don't know how much we're going to get out of January, but this one and summer are absolutely huge. Because like I was saying, the gap between, you've got the first 11, which pretty much picks itself.
Yeah.
But then when you're missing any one of those, the gap between them and the potential replacements is too big. It's far too big. And there's no European games to get any of them the experience that might help them along.
We're getting Vlahovic, man. We're getting him.
I hope so.
I
just hope he wants to play for us. If he wants to play for us, come along.
Yeah.
Judge, our midfield was too inexperienced, needed 34, as much as Lottie would want to kill me for saying it. I don't think Lottie's the only one that would want to kill you for saying that.
Oh, mate. Stephen was the man that made up the 34, Obviously, Lottie, I know Lottie doesn't like him as much as Stephen doesn't like him, but yeah, Stephen's the man with the number 34.
Yes, he is. I don't even like him. I don't even like speaking to Stephen about 34, to be honest, just in case I like show.
I know, just in case you see it, innit?
Do you know what? It's funny. I found I was flicking through Twitter the other night, and there was a tweet came up, and I checked, and it was someone who doesn't even follow Cannon Chatter, referring to him as number 34.
Yeah, man.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
man. That's all you,
started
bro.
a movement. I've started something here.
Reaching people.
That's all you, bro.
Yeah. Cal, it sounded a boring game to watch. It just wasn't enjoyable to watch
Yeah, it
at
wasn't.
all.
It wasn't.
And I've got to say, full credit to Forest for every bit as bad we were. They obviously raised their game massively.
Yeah,
and
they
the crowd
played well.
was immense. But they deserved to win. If I was a Forest fan and we got something out of that, I'd have been absolutely livid.
Yeah.
Absolutely livid. Yeah, Tony, Leno, man of the match. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I couldn't really argue with, like, for me, he was the only player that did anything for me that stood out. You know, so
yeah,
I wouldn't give it to any of them, but yeah, if I had to, it'd be him.
Without his saves, we could have easily lost that by 3 at least.
Yeah.
At least. Cal, guys, Patino aside, who else would he have started differently? Do we think Arteta thought it strong enough? What do you reckon, chaps?
I believe Arteta feels that he fielded a side that was capable of winning that game. And if you look at that team on paper, that team, regardless of all the absent first team players we had, that team should win that match. But as Stephen said to me before many a times, football's not won on paper. So regardless of whether or not you're valued or you're looked as a Premier League player and they're Championship players, etc., it doesn't mean nothing. You've got to turn up and you've got to put in a performance. But that team was good enough to get a result, like without a shadow of a doubt. But they just didn't apply themselves, and that was from the first minute right until the 90th. There was nothing. The only time we saw a little bit of urgency was once it got to about the 86th minute. That was about it. That's when you kind of saw a bit of urgency. But for whatever reason, we just didn't click. We looked completely disjointed, lack of confidence, lack of ideas. And yeah, you can make all the excuses in the world and say, we had, this player out, that player unavailable. But that team was good enough. Had they played to their potential and to their ability, they were good enough to win that game. But they didn't do that. And that's why, as much as I was really, really pissed off when the final whistle went, that's one of the reasons why I actually watched the post-match press conference from Arteta, because I really wanted to kind of get a gauge of how he was feeling. And that is one thing about Arteta that I know some people criticize, but I quite like. He don't mince his words. He doesn't beat around the bush. He kind of just says it how it is. And I quite like the fact that he's a bit of a straight talker. He just said, I picked a team that was good enough to win that game, and they did not perform. And I've told them what they put on tonight, we need to apologize for, and it was just not acceptable.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that about him. But in terms of the team and what I would have done differently, I'm not sure there would have been much that he could have done, because when you look at the bench, there was very little that he had at his disposal, other than maybe dropping Eddie and starting Laka. There was very little in terms of what he could have actually done differently. I know Stephen mentioned maybe playing previously mentioned maybe playing Ben White in midfield. That could have been an option. I know Chambers can play in midfield as well. He did it at Fulham when he was on loan. But yeah, it's a tough one. We were very, very stretched in terms of squad resources tonight. So I'm not sure. And I'm not even sure if he had even made those changes, if it would have had much difference to the result, because even when Laka came on, he didn't even look like he had anything in the tank, to be honest.
No, he didn't.
So yeah,
I think that
it
proved the decision
performance
was probably right. And when you bear in mind our next 3 games, we do need him to be as much as he possibly can. Yeah, that's a good question. Cheers for that, Cal. Tom, can't beat a glass of Blue Nun on a Sunday night. Blue Nun. Tony, team looks solid on paper, so like we're saying, for sure. But when passion is missing, lackluster performances will follow. And that was exactly the difference on paper. Like you said, G, that team was good enough to win. But like Stephen says, you don't win it on paper. And it was entirely down to application. They just wanted it a lot more than we did.
The thing is, if you look at that team, and I know, and it is something I say, we don't play football on paper, we play it on grass.
Yeah.
It's the same with, people can overanalyze stats. You'll learn more from watching someone play than you will from looking at their stats. But with the exception of Charlie Patino, every single one of those players is now Premier League experienced. Even Tavares, to an extent, is Premier League experienced, though, albeit he's only been there a few months. But he's got experience in the Premier League. If you look at the Forest side, they had Jack Colback, who had played for Sunderland in the Premier League, I believe.
Mm.
And apart from that, Lewis Graben, who scored the goal, I think has played in the Premier League, but there really wasn't much Premier League experience.
Nah.
So that team, I hate using the phrase, but on paper, that team should have won that game.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason why they couldn't have won that game. So it's really disappointing. But it's it's the story of our club. Basically, we lose games that we should easily be winning, and that's what we've only lost twice in the last 25 years in the third round of the FA Cup. Both times have been the Forest.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
Right, well, I'm going to share my thoughts on the performance now. They're really, really quick because, as you guys have covered loads, and I don't really want to keep talking about it that much more. But the thing that struck me when you look at the shirts that they were wearing today, and that was a really big day. That's a big deal, and it struck me that they weren't really aware of what those shirts were representing, what an awful lot of people have been through.
100%.
And that actually made me really, really sad. And that brings me on to what was going to be the first item that I wanted to chat about tonight was No More Red. Just very quickly, there's
I've still got about 3/4 of a bottle.
There's an organisation near to me. They're called Off the Streets Northampton, and they're doing much the same as the No More Red movement. And what they're trying to do is raise awareness, eradicate knife crime, and educate people. Now, this is obviously Northamptonshire is nowhere near as massive a problem as cities in this country, but there are 2 people in Northamptonshire stabbed every day. Luckily, there haven't been many deaths, but on average in Northamptonshire, long story cut short, the council basically rinsed millions of pounds worth, and they're trying to they're struggling at the moment. So it takes about 8 minutes for an ambulance to get to a stab victim, where many of them can bleed out within 5 minutes. So what Off the Streets are doing, they're basically supplying shops, social clubs, community centres with anti-bleed kits, which slows the process of bleeding out down. And I promised them that I'd give them a shout when I said that we were talking about this tonight, because the only way they have the means to do this is by either generous donations or fundraising. So just to let everyone know, I've dropped their details in the description. So anyone that wants to look them up, you can do via email or on their socials. But that was the bit that I wanted to say on that. But I was wondering with you guys, because I've just said, it's not a huge problem here, but it's enough of a problem. I think there were 2 people last 6 months in Northamptonshire who actually died from stabbings, and obviously that's 2 people too many. But I don't really have a huge amount of it doesn't happen here all the time. But I just didn't know if you guys firstly what your thoughts are on the No More Red movement, and if you've got any experience of this sort of thing happening. Go to you first, Stephen.
You take Carl's comment off the screen there. It's not really relating to the topic you're talking about, just so we can
yeah. Thanks for that, mate.
Give it justice. Do you know what? Well, first of all, we'll talk about the actual movement itself, the No More Red. I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic that Arsenal are leading the way on it. In terms of football clubs doing something about it. I mean, it kind of came completely out of the blue the other morning when we all opened up social media and seen the announcement. and seen the the wee video and stuff that Arsenal put together with Idris Elba and what have you. And it really makes me proud as an Arsenal fan. It really it warms the heart, especially in even today, despite that result. Even right now, I'm sitting here and I'm still proud of my club.
Yeah.
Because of what they're doing in the community. Yeah, I would have loved to be sitting here talking about a victory tonight, but you know what? It's a small thing in comparison to the other stuff that's going on.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's a massive thing, and as I say, I'm really proud of the club for doing something about it. I sort of questioned the whole, why don't they sell the kits and use the money, the proceeds, towards charitable causes to do with it? But as someone pointed out to me, that someone will always make money off of it. So maybe this way it does raise more awareness.
Yeah.
By not selling the kits. It's amazing to see as well, on the likes of Twitter and social media, how many people have jumped on to back it. I know personally one of the first things I did was get in touch with Martin, who does all our graphics and stuff, and ask him to, do us a new header and Twitter logo so we could change ours very quickly to sort of back it. But the amount of other people that I've seen, and yourself included, Keith, changing your own logos and everything just to sort of back it and support it for the weekend, it shows how much people actually, one, are proud of the club, but two, are being made aware of the situation. Now, obviously, for me here, I hear a lot about knife crime in the mainland UK, on the news and stuff, but you don't really, because I'm not there, I'm not really that aware of it. Living in Northern Ireland, growing up with a whole set of different problems, knife crime wasn't exactly a major concern. You weren't so much worried about getting stabbed as you were getting kneecapped. So it's a different thing. I mean, personally speaking, though, I've never been at the other end of an assault with a knife or anything. I have been attacked by people with screwdrivers and the likes in work, but that's a different story. And obviously, without going into too much detail, I've been around my share of guns and seen things that would make your eyes bleed, and experienced and lost friends, lost people I've known through the troubles and stuff, but it's a different thing. From my point of view now as a father, I have two young boys, and I am so concerned about the world we live in, in the knife crime sort of side of things, and I worry, and I know I've talked to G about it before and stuff, that I worry about who my kids are playing with, even at this age. And I look at, it's a terrible thing to do, but I look at the parents of the kids that my kids want to be friends with. And because Northern Ireland's quite a small country, you tend to know a lot of people, and a lot of people who know people, if that makes sense. So you always, no matter who it is, you'll always know someone who knows them. And you look at the other parents and you sort of think, right, well, what's their upbringing? What were they involved in? Who were they, what sort of people are they? What sort of influence are their kids going to be on my kids? The one thing that scares me so much as a parent is my kids falling in with the wrong crowd and getting involved in something. And I mean, kids out there that, and I say kids, and when I say kids, I mean it's teenagers. The majority of this knife crime and stuff, it's teenagers, but they're kids. And they, whether they get caught or not, if someone goes out and they stab someone, whether they get caught or not, they have to live with that for the rest of their life. They have to live knowing what they've done to somebody else and potentially kill someone. And that's on their mind for the rest of their life. They'll never get away from that. And you have to be a cold, cynical, hard-hearted person not to be affected if you did that to someone. So it falls back, for me, it falls back on what we talked about before. And I know I've had many conversations with you, Keith, about the whole sort of racism piece and people inclusion of any type for people who are different in any way. It all falls back to an education piece, in that people need to be educated better, kids need to be educated better on the reality of it. It's not good enough just sort of, for Arsenal to get involved in this. It's not good enough just to wear a white kit once. They need to do more now. They've started something, so more needs to be done. They need to put more effort in. People need to be going into schools and talking to kids from a young age and saying, this is the effect. This is what's going to happen to you. And I'm sitting here, and my go-to thing is generally make jokes about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, I'm sitting going, well, look, I could say this, that would be funny, but it's not a funny topic. And it's frightening. It really frightens me, the world we live in. But more needs to be done. And as I say, it's great, and I'm so proud of our club for getting involved. But you look at the social media thing last year, where there was people did the social media blackout for the weekend.
Yeah,
we didn't do it. We deliberately didn't do it because we knew it wasn't going to make a difference. It raised awareness for a weekend, and in all honesty, social media was a nicer place that weekend. Because the majority of people who were given the abuse weren't on, because they were trying to act like, oh, I don't do it. So it was actually a nicer place. But what have we heard about it since? Nothing. So this can't be another fly in the night thing. It can't be another, we'll wear a white kit, we'll say no more red, we'll have a weekend where we all look good, but on Monday morning we'll forget about it. On Monday morning the hard work needs to start.
Very good point. Thank you for that, mate. Appreciate your thoughts there. And what you were saying about when you worry about your kids getting in with the wrong crowd and looking at their upbringing and who are they going to get in with. I'm exactly the same on that. I'm fairly certain most parents are. It's always a concern, and I look at friends of my kids. I think, what sort of teenager are you going to grow up to be? And sometimes you can see signs and you think, I don't want my child playing with this child because I've got a fair idea of where they're going to end up in 5, 6, 7 years time. That's a really valid point. That moving on to you, G. Is there anything you want to say on it, mate?
Yeah, I think in terms of like the no more red movement, as soon as I saw it, I just thought, you know what? Yes, I can back this. This is something that, for me personally means a lot for various reasons. So I'm not going to go over what Stephen said because I think he perfectly summed it up in terms of I'm in full support of the movement, but definitely, I feel proud as an Arsenal fan because at the end of the day, I know there were some Arsenal fans out there kind of mocking it, kind of saying, well, what will it do? And I'm like, well, that's not really the point. The point is that, it's to raise awareness. It's so that we can have these conversations. That's why, it's been done. And I do strongly, agree with Stephen when he says, well, it can't just be wearing a white kit. There has to be more done. Arsenal do have the resources to tap into these communities within London and actually make a difference, with these young people's lives in terms of schools, community centres, etc. So I'm in full support of it. I'm proud as an Arsenal fan, and as a born and bred Londoner, that my club is taking such a stance, but a lot more needs to be done. So I just hope it is, not the be all and end all, but the starting point for further work to be done within the community. In terms from a personal perspective, where do I start with knife crime? It's somewhat been part of my life for my whole life. It's something that I would say, as a kid growing up in inner city London, at first you're shocked by it, you're surprised by it, whether that be you've known somebody that's been killed or injured, or you've seen a knife, and then very, very quickly, what happens is there's a process of you become desensitized, where it almost becomes accustomed. Like now, if I was walking down the street and I saw a knife or I saw somebody pull out a knife, it wouldn't surprise me. And that's just from a very young age in terms of playing out and being out, you know, on the street, etc. It's just become almost part of culture with young people. And I think that's just been heightened by, you know, social media, you know, music, you know, the film industry and so forth, that kind of glorify, you know, that type of behavior. So as a youngster, I'll admit there was a point in my life when I carried a knife. I was in a position where I never used it. But in terms of why I did it, I'll be completely honest. I was in situations where I was robbed or basically intimidated at knife point. So I felt like I needed to have one to basically even up the odds.
Hmm.
That is literally the reason why I had one. And it had nothing to do with my upbringing. You know, my father was strict. He was a devout Catholic. You know, he was just a disciplinarian. So I wasn't involved with gangs or anything like that. But once I had a couple of negative experiences, I was like, well, you know, if this is going to happen to me, then I'm going to need to, you know, protect myself. Now, I was in a very fortunate position where I never had to. So that was kind of my experience, like kind of growing up as a teen and so forth. And then one of my best friends, when I was about 17 or 18, he was actually a victim of knife crimes. He was murdered. And it was quite an actual infamous case in Southeast London at the time. And that was really, really difficult because he was one of my best friends. He played for my dad's football team. And I knew of knife crime. I'd seen knives. I'd known people that had been stabbed and stuff, but that was the real kind of first time when, you know, it became kind of real. And actually, when that happened, I stopped carrying a knife. I actually said to myself, you know what? I'm just not gonna do it. At the end of the day, if I get stopped, you know, and somebody takes out a knife, I'm just gonna do all I can to either protect myself or just try and negotiate myself out of the situation. So that for me was a big turning point because while I got quite desensitized in terms of the sighting of a knife, the reality of what a knife can actually do and what it did to one of my close friends was a real wake up call for me. So that in a real tragic kind of way, somewhat changed my life in terms of that perspective. And then obviously we move on throughout the years. I became a teacher. I worked in an inner city London school, and I've lost count of how many funerals that I've been to in terms of ex-pupils that I've taught. I've lost count of how many ex-pupils that have been either victims or perpetrators in knife crime. I've lost count. I just can't even keep up. I get calls from parents to say that their child's been murdered. I get calls from ex-pupils to say this person's been murdered. I get calls from prison from ex-pupils to say, oh, I need to contact you, sir. I've gone to prison. I've done this. I'm really sorry. Everybody's disowned me. And can you help me? You know, I'm visiting ex-pupils. I'm sending ex-pupils money every month, you know, just so they can get by. And it's like some of these people, some of these kids are good kids. It's like obviously you see the headlines and you just think all these kids that are doing this stuff, they're monsters. But many of them are not monsters. You know, I carried a knife. I was not a monster. You know, sometimes it's not all gangsters or outlaws that carry knives or find themselves in a position to do that. A lot of the time they're misled, they're manipulated, they lack role models, they feel scared. A lot of the time it's not just aggression and toxic, you know, being toxic or being involved in crime. As a result, things can escalate very quickly. And I think that's why the message of not carrying a knife really needs to be kind of hit home with these kids, because I think many of them don't actually understand the gravity of what can actually happen. So when I go past that, as the years went on, I became a father. And, you know, I'll be honest, like one of the main reasons why I no longer live in London and I live by the coast is because of my 16-year-old son. Like I brought my son up to be well-mannered. I brought him up to value education. I brought him up to go to school, to come home, concentrate on his books, like his sports, plays computer, whatever he does, wherever he wants to be, wherever he does. And he's a good boy. And I can genuinely, and I know a lot of parents will say that about their children, but I can genuinely say that You know, he is a well brought up young man. He's a much better young man than I was at his age, and it still did not stop. You know, people stopping him in the street, you know, and saying, "Give me your phone," or "Where are you from?" or "What ends are you repping?" or "Do you want to make money?" And either showing him a knife or acting as though they have a knife to intimidate him. And I saw the impact that had on him. My son was a very confident young boy, and I remember when he had his first couple of experiences, I literally saw him go within himself, and I saw the impact it had on his confidence. And as a parent, I just didn't want him to leave the house. So there'll be times when I would escort him to school. I would escort him home. You know, when he'd come home and he'd tell me about this experience that just literally happened, I would literally run out the house, no shoes on my feet, you know, looking for these people.
Mm.
And I got to a point where I just said to myself, you know what? Like, I can't solve the problems that we have within inner city. But what I can do is I'm in a position now, privileged to be in a position now where I can put my children and my family in a somewhat better environment. And it does sadden me that I would have to uproot my whole life from my home, which is London. But it got to the point where I just thought, you know, I have to protect my family, and I have to, in a way, protect him, you know, because he has in his nature, he has this somewhat, if somebody asks for my phone, I don't want to give my phone. I'm going to resist. I'm going to fight back. And I'm like, just give them the phone, because I can replace the phone, but I can't replace you,
Yeah.
you know. But he somewhat has that fire in his belly where he's like, no, this is mine. And I completely get that. So I'm not saying where we live, that's never going to happen, but the chances of it happening are far less likely than it happening where we were living. You know, I grew up in some of the roughest estates in Southeast London. I lived on Angel, you know, people who know Southeast London, Brixton, Stockwell, you know, the Aylesbury estate, those areas were rough. I moved to East London, Stratford, Canning Town, Custom House, rough areas in East London. So I've kind of been brought up in it. I've lived in it my whole life, and I kind of got to the point where I said to myself, enough's enough. I did what I could when I worked in schools, and I feel like the way I've brought up my children, I've done my part. And you know, I would love to do more, but it's one of those things where it's like sometimes you just feel somewhat you have to take care of your own, and that's exactly what I did. So for me, you know, knife crime is something that is really personal to me, for various reasons. It's almost been a part of my whole life from a child right up to now where I am as a father, which is why I got so behind it. I literally just retweeted everything. I was having conversations with people, and I just thought, yeah, you know what, this is something that's really close to me, and you know, I'd love it. I'd love if we could get to a point where, you know, knife crime was not an issue throughout the UK, you know, throughout the world. And I know that's not very realistic, but it's definitely something that we all need to kind of work towards. So, you know what? I know I've rambled on, but yeah, it's a really important cause. And I think the reason why I'm so proud that Arsenal are getting behind this is because it's somewhat of a problem that a lot of us tend to kind of turn a blind eye to. And we just think, okay, you know, thank God it's not mine, you know, thank God it's not my son, or, you know, thank God, you know, I feel for the parents, but I'm okay, etc. So yeah, I'm glad they've raised the awareness, but just like Stephen said, I think more needs to be done. And I think if more isn't done, I'll definitely be atting Arsenal to say, okay, yeah, all well and good wearing white shirts, but what now?
Yeah. Thank you, mate, for sharing that. That's you didn't rant on at all, and you didn't ramble on. That was really deep, and I can see it's personal to you, so that probably wasn't very easy to speak about. So, I appreciate that, mate, massively. Right, there's so many comments coming in here, so I've got to try to go back to where we were. I've literally no idea where we were.
Keith.
Yeah.
Sorry, just before you go on your comments, can I just make one more quick sort of point?
Yeah, absolutely.
All behavior is learned. I know that speaking from the point of view of, you know, I've talked about it before, I'm a qualified sales trainer. So I teach people how to behave. adults. I teach them how to behave and how to sell and stuff like that, and that's fine. But it's where I go back to it's an education piece, because behavior is learned, attitudes, it's all learned. Kids learn this from somewhere.
Yep.
I heard a thing the other day. Kids don't grow up. You're not born wanting to be in a gang.
Yep.
That's the influence of those around you. So it's the education piece. And I don't know about you two, but I had a situation today personally, with my kids. So we sat down and we were watching the match, and my kids were asking me why are Arsenal in white? So I was proud to be able to sit and have that conversation with them.
100%.
But it was also a really difficult conversation to have with a 5 and 6 year old.
Yep.
About knife crime. So it is a difficult conversation for any parent to have, but you need to have it.
Yep.
So that would be my sort of message. It starts with us as parents. It starts with every individual adult to have that conversation with kids. So if you have kids, and this is sort of me making a call out to, if there's any parents watching this show, or if any parents watch this back, and not even if you're a parent, but if you have any connection with young kids, if you've nieces or nephews or anybody at all, have the conversation with them. Sit down. We can make a difference if we start to make the effort.
Yeah.
I know it needs to be more. I know the government, like football clubs, everything, it all needs to be a bigger education piece. But it can all start with us as individuals. So my cry out for everybody is have that conversation. I was proud. It was a difficult conversation, but I was glad that I was able to have that with my kids today.
Yeah, well played. I had the exact same conversation with my 9 and 11-year-old daughters at bedtime. They were asking the same questions, and I don't really want to be talking to them about knife crime. We live in a sleepy Northamptonshire village, but it's essential that it is spoken about, because we have county lines and things like that are a huge problem around here. So they do need to be told, they do need to be educated. And what you said earlier about going into schools, this needs to just not stop here. Not everyone turn their profile pictures back to the colour tomorrow and it's gone, which a lot of us probably will do. But it's down to not just Arsenal. It's great that they're doing this with Adidas, but what about other London clubs? What about the sporting world in general? And you're going to have a bigger impact on the youngsters in this country by using things like sport. You don't want someone like Priti Patel saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm a gooner." No one's listening to her. No one cares. It's these people. I saw the interview that Wrighty did with Reece Nelson. And, you mentioned Aylesbury House. I think that's where Reece Nelson grew up as well. And, kids are going to listen to people like it because they can relate. They can't relate to a politician. They can relate to their sports heroes, their film stars, their pop stars. These are the people that are going to make a difference. But they do need to keep doing it. It's like you look at the taking of the knee. I'm so happy that is still going on. And I want that to go on forever. Obviously, I don't want the social injustices to be going on forever, but that needs to be there so we remember.
Constant reminder,
people are treated in an awful, awful way for reasons that are beyond their doing. And this needs to continue in the same vein. And hopefully it will. And hopefully by, this is probably not the only show that's going to talk about this. I hope it's not. It needs to keep being spoken about. And Stephen's so right. It's education.
You know what? It's so important because it's like my dad had me, and nothing against if you're in your 50s and you're having children, nothing against that. But my dad had me when he was like 51, 52, and he was from a whole different country. He came from Trinidad, and the generation and the culture was somewhat so different. In his day, as he would say, it's a fist fight. There's no honor in fighting with a weapon. So it was like everything you did was, if you had a fight with somebody, you lost, you shook hands and you moved on. So he was from that generation. So when I was growing up, and obviously as I got older and I was having more freedom, he hadn't a clue that, you know, there were these, you know, potential kind of influences or dangers out on the street, because he was just kind of somewhat stuck in like his kind of generation. And it's so easily how these things can escalate. Because I remember when the first time I was stopped at knife point in London, I think I was walking home like quite late at night. I'd gone to my friend's house or something, and I remember I walked in and I went straight to my room, and my dad tried to speak to me because he could see I was upset, but I didn't want to speak to him, and I didn't really want to tell him, and I didn't tell him in the end. I went to bed and whatever, and I think a couple of days later, I spoke to, you know, some of my friends, or people that I knew in the area, and I told them what had happened, and that's basically how it happened for me to, like, in the end, carry a knife. Because one of the guys said, well, look, if that happens again, here's this. Now, I say in my day, we used to carry, like, or guys used to carry somewhat like pocket knives. None of this like samurai Rambo stuff that they got going on now, or zombie knives that they call it. But the guy just passed it to me. And although I was reluctant, I remember standing there thinking, I know this is wrong. At the same time, it's like all eyes were on me. And it's like I didn't kind of want to be seen to like not take it. So I kind of took it, and I remember I had it in my room for like ages, and I was like petrified if my dad would find it, because he would have literally battered me if he had found it. But then I remember there was one time when I was walking, I was going to my friend's house. My dad used to be a cabbie and used to do mini cab driving at night. And I was going to my friend's house, and I thought to myself, all of a sudden, there was that paranoia of going out late, it might happen again. So I reached for it and I put it in my back pocket. Like I say, I was in a fortunate position where I've never needed to use it, or never needed to use it. But that's how easily, like, it can happen. And that's one thing that, when, you know, since being a father and having teenage kids, like, I've had, going back to what Stephen said, I've had those conversations with my kids. I've had conversations with my kids about drugs, about knives, about guns, about sex. I've had the lot, like, literally. I've not always had the conversations with my daughter, because some of those conversations for her and her mum to have. But with my son, I've had all those conversations, because as far as I'm concerned, you know, as a father or as a role model for a young man growing up, they have to hear it from you. You know, they have to get kind of your insight and your experience, because what's going to happen if that doesn't happen is that they will get influence and insight from somebody else. And the problem is that person might not always have their best interests at heart. You know, anything I say to my son, or I advise my son, or I tell him, is coming from a good place. You know, so I'm gonna share my experiences. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna say to him, you know, these are the things that have happened. This is what can happen. This is what might not happen, etc. And it's then for him to kind of take that on board and make his own decisions. But yeah, I have to massively rate what Stephen just said in terms of having those conversations. My dad was very much from the old school, in that you kind of live and you learn. And you know, you don't really have those conversations, you know, with your son, etc. Whereas I've done the complete opposite, because I don't want there to be any surprises with my son. I don't want there to be any kind of shocks or anything like that. And I just want to be as transparent with him as possible, because I just feel like those are the conversations you need to have to best protect them in this world that we live in. Because if we're sitting here and we're being reserved and we're being somewhat private and we don't want to have these conversations, the internet is already having a conversation with them. Absolutely. The problem is the internet is coming from a completely different angle. Do you understand? So we have to have these conversations. We have to. So while the internet is telling our daughters, you need to look like this and you need to act like that, I'm telling you, you're perfect. You act the way you want to act. While the internet is telling my son he needs to kick a ball, or just, you know, write a rap song, or care about jewelry and women and fast cars, no, you can read your books. It's okay if you want to do an apprenticeship. We have to have these conversations with our kids, because otherwise they're bombarded with so much rubbish out there online with their peers, that we need to have these conversations. We really, really do. So any of you, you know, as Stephen said, if you've got kids, if you've got nephews, cousins, friends that have got kids, have the conversations, because it's so important. So important.
I can only echo that a million percent what you guys just said there. That's really powerful, and again, cheers massively for both sharing that, because it can only help. You know, it could start with three guys here sat talking to each other on their computer screens, and it could take one person in the chat to think, oh yeah, there's that person I know, I'll go speak to them. It's amazing. So cheers, fellas. Really appreciate that. Right, where was I? I'm entirely blown away now. I need to refocus, regather my thoughts. I knew that was going to be a powerful subject to discuss, but it needed to be discussed because it's out there, and the same as you guys, I don't want it to be tomorrow's Monday. The white shirts are gone, the white profile pictures are gone. It does need to carry on. So yeah. Right, comments. Where do we even get to? We might have been there with Cal. If I've missed anyone, like I said earlier, I'm really sorry. I'm very new at this, and there's like loads on here, so we'll try to rattle through them. Cal, that's the story, isn't it? Why were they flat and take so long to get urgency? So are there any half-time turnarounds you guys can think of? There have been in the past. It just didn't happen today. Yeah, there was no.
It was flat.
Yeah, there was no change around at all. Tony, honestly, I was fearful we'd rely on Eddie because of his hat trick, and that it would backfire on us. One good performance doesn't equal consistent performances, and today was that case. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Really was. Great shout on the matter, Keith. Cheers, Jake. I can't really remember what point we were at there. When we first got into the knife crime and the no more red. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate that. Judge, knife violence in the UK, gun violence in the US. It's 2022. Please, let's start loving each other and let the kindness flow. Could not have said that better myself.
Yeah.
The no more red movement. Great idea. I'm actually very concerned about violence with our kids myself, even antisocial stuff. Great Arsenal. Agree with you, Stephen. Very proud. Tony, football matches are insignificant compared to the real issues that surround us. So proud of Arsenal for taking the initiative on this subject. Yep. Respect to you, Stephen, for your words. Jake, well said. Is G's mouth blue from Cal?
I don't know. I think it's the lighting in here. I think it's the lighting.
It might be the hue off your computer screen, actually.
Yeah, I think so. I'm in my daughter's room, actually, because the house is taken over by the in-laws. So yeah. I'm in my daughter's room.
That's a great question, by the way. Just my screen. Can't see me. I think it's the light on him, Cal. Oh, this is turning into one of them conversations. Sorry, G, that's crazy. Your story on this subject. Yeah. Very. It shows to me how different people's lives can be, because I've known you guys, I don't even know how long, 6-9 months, I suppose, and class you as some of my best mates, and we get on so well, but we all come from such different lifestyles, and the stuff that you witnessed as a kid. It's like my parents moved away from London. We were like West London. This is when I was 14, so 1987, and they'd seen them get battered really badly outside our house. And that was that point. They were like, right, Keith's 14, we're gone. So they moved us out to sleepy Norfolk. Same sort of reasons, but I didn't see anything to the extent that that you did. I don't even know how to describe how I feel about that.
It's funny because we was in London. We were always thinking of moving to the coast, and it was about, I think it was in the summer. We was actually like putting it into place, like putting emotions. And then it was one afternoon, I'd walking back from the gym, and it was about 3:30. I'd taken a late lunch where I work from home, and my son and daughter had come home, and literally, I think it was 4 o'clock. And where my gym was, there was like a little pizzeria shop, and it was about 4 o'clock. This boy who was known in the local area, not for badness, but he was just known, him and his family. Everybody knew everyone, and he'd literally been stabbed to death because he'd rode to the pizza shop to pick up a delivery on his scooter, and they asked him for his scooter. He didn't give it, and they killed him. And this was at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. broad day, like sunny main road, literally main road, Barking Road, next to Canning Town Station, and he was just murdered. And I remember at that point, I was just like, listen, the first house, I don't care what this house looks like, the first one that comes up, we're moving. Even if we have to move again in another 6 months or a year's time and get the forever home, but whatever comes up, we're gone. Because I just couldn't take it. Couldn't take it. Too close to home.
Yeah.
Crazy,
I
man.
think most of us would do exactly the same. It's interesting what you say as well. It's like, doesn't matter what that first home, it's about location, it's about getting your family away from that situation. Full respect.
100%.
Jake, London's terrible for knife crime. Have to agree with G on becoming normal, unfortunately. Growing up in London is tough. Tony, G's so right about our culture's getting desensitized to violence and crime. Youths, even adults, need to remember we're all human beings. Respect for life starts at home. Cal, same as me, really. Shocked. And yeah, thanks again for that. That must have been really hard to recount all that, to be honest. Tony, Keith, can't thank you enough for bringing this topic to the fore. This is something that truly needs to be spoken about and brought to light. You don't need to thank me too much for it. It's actually these guys you need to thank, because I wasn't ready for your story, G. And the stuff you said, Stephen, as well, with guns and kneecappings and stuff. Like I say, I'm a little country mouse, and to listen to stuff like this, but people like me need to listen to this as well. Even though I was saying about my friend that set up this organisation, and there are problems locally, nothing on this level. And this is why it needs to
yeah, to be honest, I didn't even think about sharing. It's like when I, obviously I knew we'd probably touch upon the kind of no more red thing, but I thought we'd just kind of, talk about it in terms of surface level. But you know what? Sometimes when it feels right to share, you just share,
Absolutely. Yeah. And so much good will come out of it. Don't know how many people will see this, but as actually everyone, you need to like this and subscribe and share it. And we need as many people as possible to see this. And that's not just me saying I want to get monetized and stop working so I can do this for a job. That's because this is a really, really important message. But also I'd like to get monetized, but I'll just throw that in.
The thing is, we tend not to take an awful lot of stuff overly seriously.
Yeah.
But even if you go back and you watch our shows where we've touched on subjects like this, it always ends up being a very deep conversation. And you've been part of them before.
Yeah.
Keith, you've been there with us.
Absolutely.
It's something we'll always, and I respect G an awful lot for this. He's always been very open and honest about his experiences, as have I. I've always tried to be as open and honest and be as heartfelt as we can, because there's no point half-hearted talking about this.
No.
There's no point sort of mentioning it and sort of giving it a little mention and sort of breezing over it. If you're going to have the conversation properly.
Yeah.
And there is no way to joke about this. That's kind of maybe as traditional men that don't come to showing their feelings that easily. We try to make jokes of things, but there is no way that this can be joked about. I personally wouldn't want to joke about it anyway. And like you said, Stephen, this sort of thing, you can't half-arse it. You've got to do it properly, and you've got to go all in.
What I was sort of just going to finish up with there, Keith, was to go back to what Antonio was saying. Thank you, because you know what? You've given me and G the platform tonight to talk about it.
100%.
So you have to have the thanks. You deserve the thanks and the credit for allowing us that opportunity. So thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers, all of you. I appreciate that. Yes, that was Antonio's comment. Carl, bad peers are teaching these people more than parents, but someone is. Yes, Tony on the caring and love. Yeah, can't agree anymore. And we all know what Tony's like. He's one of the most peaceful, gentle souls you'll ever possibly meet.
Sound guy.
Yeah, absolute legend of a bloke. Right, there was some other stuff I was going to talk about more lighthearted, but it kind of doesn't feel right to do that now. It's just, I was going to talk about the FA Cup and what it means to us all, but we've all proved how important it is by how gutted we are about what's happened today. The one thing that struck me, I mean, today is a prime example of the beauty of the FA Cup. Not for us right at the moment, but it is the beauty of the FA Cup. And there was one story in fact, two stories from yesterday. There was Joe Gray playing for Hartlepool against Blackpool, who were 2 divisions above them. 18 years old, come off the bench, scored the winner, and then he's doing the interviews, and they're talking about him on Match of the Day. And I just thought, that is brilliant. And the other one was the Barrow-Barnsley game. Like, Barrow apparently hadn't scored in the last 5 games. They're down at 10 men after 38 minutes, again against the side 2 divisions above them. And they scored a last-minute equaliser to make it 4-4. Everyone's going nuts. Unfortunately, they lost in extra time. But again, to me, that's the FA Cup. That's what I love. Especially
you had Cambridge beating Newcastle as well, innit?
Yeah, their goalkeeper. Like, what's his name? I did jot it down. Dimitar Mitov, probably the best game he's ever played.
Yeah,
he was like an absolute wall. I mean, what about you guys? Obviously,
the first ever Arsenal shirt I had was from the 92-93 season when we won the Coca-Cola Cup and the FA Cup, beating Sheffield Wednesday in both finals. And my mum and dad were in London that summer, and they'd gone to Highbury, and they went to the Highbury shop, and they brought me back my first Arsenal top, which had the FA Cup embroidered in it. And I still have it. I mean, I've shown it to G before. It's embroidered Football Association Challenge Cup final, Wembley, May 1993 winners. So the FA Cup will always hold a special place in my heart because I say that's the first ever Arsenal kit I've ever owned.
I love that. What about you, G?
You know what? It's like growing up, it's I think for me, just some of the greatest and most devastating moments have come in the FA Cup for me as an Arsenal fan. I do love the magic of the FA Cup because it's the whole kind of giant killing, that can happen in the cup. It's a one-off game. It's like anything can happen. And, it's far like, the likes of, Nottingham Forest and Arsenal, in obviously the modern era, we're never really going to play them, in 90 minutes or whatever, unless it's in the cup. Cambridge beating Newcastle, like as much as we're sitting in, we're gutted. It gives, can you imagine what it's like now for those Nottingham Forest fans? Do you know what I mean? It's just you can't even explain how they're feeling right now. Complete contrast to how we're feeling. But yeah, so for me, like growing up, and I've got some really, really horrible memories of the FA Cup. I remember Ryan Giggs scoring the wonder goal in the semi-final when Bergkamp missed the penalty at the other end. I remember Michael Owen scoring 2 goals in like almost the 88th and the 90th minute in one of the cup finals. But I also have so many fond memories of the FA Cup, however many times I've seen, Arsenal lift it, even in my lifetime. So I love the FA Cup. And, it's like, sometimes people somewhat in the past have, kind of somewhat maybe disrespected it or not shown it, the kind of respect it deserves in terms of, because, all of a sudden it's like when you look at the major trophies that we've won in recent years, we talk about the three FA Cups we've won. It's almost like people kind of like look down on those. And I'm like, are you crazy? Other than the Premier League, the FA Cup is the biggest cup for me in terms of English football. And it's not a trophy to be laughed at or mocked at. It's massive in terms of English football. So yeah, it's massive. It's massive. And I absolutely love the FA Cup. And I think one of the reasons why I love it so much is because we won it 14 times, baby.
Yeah, I was hoping for 15.
You know what I mean? So
the exception of the Premier League,
not this year.
It's the best trophy to win in English domestic football.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's it.
I still don't know at this point if I'd take it over 4th place. I want 4th place, but again, the FA Cup's the FA Cup.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you had a choice, Keith, I'll put you on the spot now on your first live stream. If you had a choice, FA Cup win or even FA Cup trophy or top 4. Obviously ruling out the Premier League, guys.
I'm definitely going to say top 4 now. after this afternoon's game. But I would have said that beforehand. It's as far as the club progressing and moving forwards and showing that we are progressing, fourth place is more important. And you can attract those players. The money's ridiculous.
Stephen, don't agree.
Come on, Stephen. You take the trophy.
I agree. Just for the record, before you speak, Stephen, I agree with Keith. I do. Fourth spot is crucial for us. Do you know what I mean? We won it 14 times. Don't get me wrong. I understand. I know what you're gonna say. I know where you're gonna come out. But yeah, top 4 for me right now. That's that whole precedence over everything at the moment for me.
Stephen, before you jump in, I would like to say the squad we got at the moment, we are not ready for the Champions League, but I still want to be back in the Champions League. Your turn, mate. What do you want to say?
I want Champions League as well, but I will always take a trophy over top 4. Top 4 is not a trophy, and you know what? We complained so much when Wenger used to say it, and we took it for granted because we're not in it now. But at the same time, you know, we can't take the piss out of Spurs for when we finish in the top 4. We can when we win trophies. No, I'll always take a trophy over a top 4 finish. Always.
I feel like just this one season though. I feel like just this one season.
No.
How about? Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say one last thing in terms of, you know, how special the FA Cup is. Put it like this. Name me one other trophy in world football that people talk about the magic of. It's the magic of the FA Cup.
Yeah, there's nothing like it in the world.
No,
there's no other trophy in the world. People don't even say it's the magic of the World Cup or it's the magic of the Euros. It's the magic of the European Cup. It's the magic of the FA Cup.
It is.
Yeah.
It's big. It's big.
I agree.
And that's why those players need to take a good look in the mirror.
Yeah, this was the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Going back to your question, G, about what I would prefer, I want a trophy and top 4. Can I have that instead?
Yeah.
I want the Carabao Cup. I want to destroy Liverpool because I've still got the ump with them. And top 4 and Tottenham's Day. That'll do me. I'll be happy then.
I'll be thrilled. I'll be thrilled with that.
Right, let's look at some more comments. I just noticed the time. We've been on nearly an hour and a half. This has gone so fast. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at some comments and then we'll probably wrap it up, I think. We've been there. That's where we finished up. All right, Antonio again. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. We left it because of what we're discussing when I was about 4 years old. I'm grateful to have been given the opportunity to grow up in a safer place. Yeah, absolutely. And now he lives in Florida.
Yeah, amazing, man.
You know, Stephen, you look absolute class in that shirt. We all know what Antonio's shirt collection's like. That's high praise.
Yeah, I was going to say this coming from the big hunk of man pie that is Antonio. You know, I feel the one thing you will notice there is no Cannon Chatterware on tonight. I decided I was not going to be out just to promote our channel.
Yeah,
mate, I was not.
By the way,
I've noticed you got the logo just over your shoulder there.
I just want to point it. This isn't. It's actually deliberately placed. It's because there's a massive pile of paperwork under here that I need to go through. So I just kind of went, I'll throw a t-shirt over that to hide it.
Yeah.
I've got a load of gaffer tape up there holding the roof on, basically.
I'm just rocking my Prime Money t-shirt.
Oh yeah. Our last place I travelled, Tony. I'm saying, these are having a conversation now, aren't they? It's not as bad as it used to be during the violent drug times, thankfully. Hope to return and see some family again soon. Very nice top that, Cal Green. Thumbs up, Judge. Saw James Bond's space dish before it collapsed a few years ago. I don't know what that is. Is there a
James Bond space dish?
Is that in Puerto Rico? Antonio, you'll have to let us know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there we go. The Arecibo Observatory. My grandmother used to live close to it. Got to see it before it collapsed. Is that off? It's not Goldfinger. Can't think which one. I think I know what you're talking about now. Jake, top 4 on Carabao Cup. Just think, how awesome would it be, right? Because I was quite vociferous in my my feelings about Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp last week, and I don't care what anyone says. I still think they've done a number on us. If we were to beat them and then turn the other lot over in the final, get a trophy in front of them, and top 4, that would be ideal. I'd take that. Especially, I'd said at the start of the season, if we come 6th and we do it in a good manner, I will see that as the improvement that I want to see for this season. And I suppose that was the frustrating thing about today. It's like we were starting to see some consistency, and especially how we played against City. You know, we all agreed best we've played this season by a country mile, and probably I can't think of a game last season where we played that well.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
that fixture against Liverpool, I think could have potentially somewhat just kind of stifled, the kind of momentum that we was on. I know it's no excuse, but yeah, I said to you before we came on air, I said, we've literally gone from, I said it in our last stream on Cannon Chatter, I said that was our best performance against City, given the opposition. And albeit the team was very different, it's our worst performance today, given the opposition. So it's just like, it's crazy, isn't it? But it's really hard to, sometimes it's really hard to kind of put it into perspective, because you have to think about, the gap in between games. The personnel that was on the pitch is very different to obviously those against City. So yeah, it's a tough one. It's like the season has become somewhat disjointed with all the kind of, rescheduled games and so forth. So yeah, it's disappointing result, but I'm just hoping that we can get some players back and obviously bounce back against Liverpool next week.
Yeah, definitely. Could not agree more. Right, last few comments, and I think we'll wrap it up. It's a big dish, Keith. It drives over in a BMW Z3. Top 4 Carabao Cup. Let's find some North London Derby pride when we smash Spurs. Absolutely could not agree more. Right, this is the point where you find out how new I am at this. There we go. Look, I've put a little message on for my.
Oh, I appreciate that, my bro.
And this is the time when you plug yourselves. Obviously, there's no Lottie here to run through your socials like you normally do. So we'll start with you, G. Tell everyone where they can find you, mate.
You know what? I'm G Talks Arsenal. You can follow me literally at G Talks Arsenal. Just find me on Twitter. Most of the guys in the chat, guys and girls in the chat, I recognize, I kind of interact with. So yeah, if for whatever reason we're not following each other, make sure we're following each other after the show. And yeah, no, that's about it, really.
Thank you, mate. Stephen.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at the SB Cannon Chatter, but to be honest, I don't really post much on it. It's more just sort of retweeting the main Cannon Chatter account, which I look after. So, again, as G said, most of the guys that chat here, we're all familiar. We're all part of a big family, and it's great to see you guys tuning in and supporting Keith. I just want to take a wee moment and sort of say, I kind of feel like a proud daddy, even though you're much, much, much older than me, Keith. But do you know what? I popped your cherry when it came to doing live streams. Cannon Chatter was the first show you were ever on.
Yep.
And we're fortunate to have been asked on tonight to sort of be with you again on your first live stream. So, I'm honoured, and I do kind of feel like a proud daddy that, it's come full circle now.
I appreciate that.
So thank you for inviting us on. I really appreciate it. And for any of you guys in the chat, if you haven't liked this video, like it now. And if you're not subscribed to Keith's channel, make sure and subscribe, turn on notifications and follow him and interact with him and watch everything he does, because he's an absolute legend.
100%.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, lads. That's actually how I was going to end with mentioning that I don't even know how long ago it was now. It might have been 9 months ago when I got a message from these guys to see if I wanted to go on their live stream, and I was like, I've never done that before, but I did, and they treated me really, really well, and we've been mates ever since. And it's not just that we're mates. I really love the content that you guys come up with. I love the conversation pieces. I love the fact that everything's inclusive. We all have different opinions. We proved that just now with what we want, whether top 4 or trophies. And we proved that we can come from 3 completely different ways of life, have different viewpoints on things, but still be able to have a reasonable, measured, intelligent conversation, whether it be about football or other stuff. And I can only echo and mirror in reverse what Stephen just said. I think everybody in the chat already subscribes to you, but if anyone watches this back in the next few days, by the way, if you do watch this back in the next few days, cheers for that, it's appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to Cannon Chatter, because it is literally a little gem, and you won't find anything better on YouTube, and I mean that sincerely.
Appreciate that, bro.
And before we go, you lot in the chat, I would love to say thank you very much, because I was stood there this afternoon. I was having a crafty cigar in my back garden, and I was thinking, I figured some people would be in the chat, but I wasn't actually that bothered if there was no one in there, because that's one less thing for me to worry about, getting all the comments up and all that. But the fact that so many of you were here at the start, and we are now an hour and a half in on a Sunday night, and you're still there, and that's appreciated massively. So thank you, you lot in the chat. Thank you two on the screen as well, because
Pleasure, my bro. Pleasure.
you made it absolutely perfect and brilliant. And it's an honour for you two to be here for my first live stream as well. But on that note, I'm going to bid you all good night, and we'll see you next time.